today I'm going to talk with Nancy Frecka. She is an author, a speaker, a pastor. How are you today, Nancy?
I'm great. And how are you doing?
I am good. And she wrote this book right here that I have in my hands. It's called God Says You Can Trust Me, Supernatural Encounters with God. And I've gotten to chat with her a little bit here before our interview, so I'm really excited for you guys to be able to hear some of her stories. Nancy, first of all, just tell me the 30-second version of who is Nancy. Tell me a little bit about you. I know that's a really loaded question, but just tell me a little bit about your background. Are you married? Do you have kids, grandkids? Tell me about that.
Well, yes, I am married to my husband, John, and we have, he has 5 kids, 10 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren, and I have two sons and 3 grandchildren. And so together there's 30 of us.
That's amazing. Those must be fun family outings.
It's interesting.
It's interesting, yes, to say the least. Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about this book. Again, I know a little bit of a loaded question, but tell me your life story is in this book. These are stories, these are true stories of things that have happened in your life, correct?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about it.
Well, I'm what I call a reluctant author.
Okay.
This was not my idea. This is my 4th book, and the challenge of it is that you have to be authentic, and you're putting it in print so the world can see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's my story of my journey with God. I have had 2 near-death experiences. They're both documented at the hospital.
Wow.
I was flatlined 15 minutes, and I was with Jesus in heaven, and there's nothing better, nothing. I mean, whatever you got to do it to get to heaven. It's incredible. The love is amazing. I have had numerous experiences with him, and I lived in a haunted house where my brother was killed. Many encounters with God, guiding me, helping me with the ordinary and the extraordinary. And he's protected me from serious danger, life-threatening situations, and as well as taken me on fun trips. And I mean, I can't imagine not being that way anymore.
Wow. Let's talk about some of those stories. Can you talk about the haunted house where your brother was killed? Can you speak to that a little bit?
I lived I was just a kid, and we had a farm, 40-acre farm in Geneva, just 10 miles outside of Geneva. And the house had sat vacant for many years. And my parents were from Cleveland, and my dad had always dreamed of having a farm. Now, 40 acres in that area was a mini farm in comparison to today. 40 acres is a big deal, but in there, it's 100, 200 acres.
Right.
And so, but it sat vacant for many, many years, and of course, it was the deal of a lifetime. Sound familiar? Like a movie called Amityville Horror?
Okay.
And so with that, incredible, horrible things happened there.
Oh, wow.
And my brother was literally killed there, and the sheriff couldn't explain it. We had the howling coming down the hill, and just, it's like a Stephen King movie.
Oh my gosh.
And I wouldn't recommend that for anybody.
No, and I'm so sorry about your brother.
Oh, thank you. And I was 6, so, it was, Sonny was 18, and it was a very difficult time which shaped our lives.
Yeah.
And there were numerous haunted experiences there.
Wow, okay. So go ahead and just choose another story from the book, from your life, where you really got to see God working supernaturally.
Okay, there's lots. The one that, I guess what I want people to know is that you can trust him, even in the tough times.
Yeah.
And it's easy to trust him when everything's going great.
Right.
But it's not so easy to trust him when things aren't going well and you can't see the end of it. And that's the challenge of it.
Yeah.
One of those stories was when, many years ago, I was sleeping and I had a dream about a man with a knife and a shark. And it scared me so bad I woke up and I couldn't go back to sleep. Well, then I heard the rain outside my window and I thought, oh, I better shut the window. So I got up on my knees and I went the bed was in front of the window.
Okay.
And I got on my knees, and you know when you're half asleep, you're drowsy and that. And so I got on my knees to shut the window, and the window wouldn't go down. And I looked down, and there's hands pushing it up. And then I look, and there's these eyes staring back at me.
Oh my gosh.
And the window kept going up. And it didn't matter that I saw them.
Yeah.
And I jumped back, and I kept saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I was home alone. The kids were with Grandma at that time, overnight. And so I'm like freaking out. But all I could say was, oh my God. And then this sound came out of me. And the best way I can describe it, it sounded like a gorilla.
Okay.
And it was so loud that his gang, who was robbing my neighbors across the street in the rain, and 3 of them were outside my window, and I didn't know that. All I saw was one.
Was one person.
And they heard me outside across the street through the rain.
Oh my gosh.
And I had no idea what that sound was. The best I can describe it is like a gorilla, but it scared them away. And when the cops came, they told me that after they caught him, that he was out on parole for murder, and that he was a leader of a gang, and that nothing would have scared him, because you name it, he's done it. They called him an incorrigible.
Right.
And so guns, knives, all that kind of stuff wouldn't have mattered. But this sound, and that's what they kept saying, this sound. And so God gave me the sound. I didn't know I was capable of that sound. And
what a wild story.
Yeah, and then it gets worse, because then there was the threats of not testifying against him, having to go to Chris Shockton's prison, and all the details that went with that, which were terrifying.
Wow. Is this all in this book?
Yes, it is. And so I use that one because in the middle of that, I was terrified and didn't know what to do, and I just kept following God's leading and trusting him. And he brought me through it. And obviously I'm here.
Yes, you're here and you're telling this story, which, I mean, even just you bringing up some of those details makes me want to dig in and read more of that story. That's so incredible.
Thank you.
And that God led you through all of that time, and that now you're here telling it. So,
you know, our testimonies are important, because we know what happened in our lives when God showed up. And it can be a small thing, like when he took us to Maine, and we had an 11-day trip with no reservations over the 4th of July, and we had an incredible time because he led us. The deal was not to make any reservations and to trust him.
Yeah.
Well,
wow.
That's a lot of trust. I wouldn't recommend this to anybody until you started trusting him in small ways.
Yes.
And so that trip was a fun trip, and it was much more than I would have expected. And so whether you're being in a life-threatening situation or a fun vacation, you can trust God.
Yeah. That's really beautiful. I love that. And you want to help people to be able to trust God in those small ways, or maybe take those first steps if that's something they're interested in doing. And so you're actually going to run a class here in January, right?
Yes, in January. The date is to be determined yet, but it's in the month of January. And if anybody's interested in wanting to learn how to hear the voice of God and follow his leading, they can go to my website, godissupernatural.com, and you can send me an email and I'll get back with you.
I love that. Nancy, how can people get your book too?
It's on Amazon.
On Amazon. So we just type in God Says You Can Trust Me,
right,
and you can find it there.
Yes.
Wonderful. And so you said your website as well. Are you on social media too?
Yes, on Facebook. And I have the website and I have Facebook.
Okay, wonderful. So godissupernatural.com?
Yes.
Okay. godissupernatural.com. Go on Amazon. You can get the book there. Also, I'm going to hold it up for you one more time. Also, you can go to her Facebook page. Is the Facebook page God Says You Can Trust Me, or is it your name? What is your Facebook?
Yeah, there's both.
Both of them.
But the one for the book is God Says You Can Trust Me.
God Says You Can Trust Me. Let's wrap up with just some words of wisdom. Someone's watching. They want, maybe even today, to just start listening for the voice of God. What would you say to that person?
You have to trust that nothing that you can think of is what God's limited to. Because He's beyond anything we can think or imagine. And if my life has not shown anything else, it's shown that I can't second guess Him. Because what He can come up with is far more greater than what we know that we even need. And the book has lots of stories of that in there. But I guess what I'd hope for everybody is that they start with baby steps, because it's not easy to trust. Trust is something you earn.
Yeah.
And God is well worth trusting. And so start with the little small steps. I teach people how to find a parking spot. Sounds silly, but in that, you learn to go, oh, I don't have to, and one of the nurses needed to have a parking spot, and I used that because it's so simple. But it was at Kent State, and they could not find a parking spot.
I understand that. I went to school there.
Oh,
so
well, then you know.
I know
And
how
she
hard
had
it
an
is.
exam, and she had to get there on time. And she couldn't find it. She drove around, then finally she prayed. And then a parking spot appeared right in front of the building. And so some people can call it coincidence. But after a while, you have to notice those coincidences are timed to prayer.
Yeah.
And so that would be my choice, hopefully, that they can learn to trust God one step at a time.
One step at a time in the little things. Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you for telling your story. I hope that our viewers go out and get your book, and I'm certainly going to read it. It sounds so interesting. I want to hear more of the details of all of the stories that you've given us today. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys so much for watching here on Good Morning Akron. We have more great stuff coming up next, so make sure you stay tuned.